Hello there. Hi again. Welcome back to another episode of Star Trek Prodigy on the Trekway. Cheers, Gray. Season 1, episode 16. The review today will be, or the review episode is called Preludes. Better than last week's episode, Gray, I think. Well, that was not hard to actually beat that considering how crap it was.
It's true.
What is man? You like this one though, yeah?
Yeah, I definitely liked it better. I still have some issues that we'll talk about, but yeah, it was definitely better than the last one. At least they're kind of back more on keel now, I guess, or whatever.
They must have watched last week's episode. What can I say, Gray? And proved it last
That's right.
They listened to you. They listened to you, mate.
That was it, man. They're just doing these episodes right as we talk. Let's listen to them, and then we'll do the episode.
No, last minute alterations, silly. There's practicalities.
Right. They bring the actors in to do last minute voiceovers. Quick changes because the Trekway said that.
Yeah, but we listened to Gray. Wasn't happy with something. We have to change it. It was better than last week. It was, and it was decent. We'll get to our final thoughts and obviously scores and stuff at the end. But yeah, we'll kick off there. Gray's got some notes he's added here, some things that I've missed and whatnot. So we should cover everything. We kick off this week's episode with VA Janeway, is what I'm calling her, Vice Admiral Janeway. She's frustrated, Gray. She's a frustrated Vice Admiral because she cannot enter the neutral zone, nor will the protostar come out, and they're still ignoring all hails. And then obviously, well, not obviously, she finds out she actually can put names to faces now of the protostar crew. And Gray notes here, that's something I missed out, it was thanks to the intercepted bounty put out by such and such, whom we'll discuss that later on. We don't want to spoil it at the start, or you turn off and go to sleep. So she can actually put name to faces. Now, we'll get to one particular character, screw it, Gwen on there. She doesn't click straight away who that is, just looking at her. I thought it was a bit silly, Gray, but there is a bit later on where we actually talk about that. Now, I had a little chuckle here in the next part because we actually have Dal trying to fix something. Now, we know Jankum Pog's our engineer, decent engineer, but we've actually got Dal trying to fix something and making a bit of an arse of himself, electrocuting himself. He's not very good at it. I think he manages to fix something, Gray, maybe a little bit after that. I don't recall.
Well, I think it was Gwen or something said that, we are supposed to work as a team. She was explaining to them, like, we may not be the engineer, but we're going to follow whatever Jankum tells us to fix.
Whatever Jankum tells us to fix. He's the boss. He's the boss. No, they are trying to fix the auxiliary warp drive, I believe it's called, which is used for the proto star, the proto jump, the proto thing inside it. We still don't fully understand, Gray, how this bloody thing works. Something to do with
or how it came about either.
A little star. I think it's like a small artificial star that powers it, but I'm sure the Romulan Warbird warp drive is powered by a small black hole, if I remember my tech geek Star Trekness. So this was, I still don't understand how it works compared to that and Slipstream and whatnot. All I know is when you saw a chase 2-3 weeks ago between the Dauntless and the Protostar, they were very close to one another. Yeah. So I'm thinking Protostar is going to be a one-off and never happen again. It's just going to be Slipstream now. Would you like to see Slipstream be the next thing, Gray? Because it's not instantaneous like the Spore Drive.
Just don't even talk about the Spore Drive to me, please.
Not yet, anyway.
The Slipstream, I think, is pretty much a foregone conclusion. It's being accepted or being put into more ships, or maybe being put into more of the higher end ships, I guess.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And that makes sense. Although you and I were talking off camera a little bit about how far can you push the actual speed, because they say, I think they said warp drive now is like 9.999. Yeah, it started out as like 9.95. Then they said that now with the Slipstream, I think it's 9.97. So what does that mean? Protostar's 9.99, because they can't pass the mythical 10.
Yeah.
And stuff. So they just kind of like, but I guess in terms of when you're talking light speeds and stuff, I guess even those fractions makes the difference.
What happens when we hit warp 10? Gray? Do you remember? Do you recall?
I forget, but they break all kinds of bizarre laws of physics. And
You end up with alien babies.
yeah, that's it.
That was Tom Paris and Captain Janeway at the time on Voyager. That episode.
Okay. I remember the episode you're talking about. Isn't that where they look like slugs on the...
Yeah, like salamanders or something. Yeah.
Sorry, but that episode was not a good episode.
See if they'd not done the whole babies and mutation thing, it would have been fine. If there'd just been some other way to explain what happens when you go to Warp 10, the fact that he was everywhere at once, which is what Warp 10 is supposed to be now, that you're not really supposed to hit it. They can, but it's not going to work out too well for you. It was a bit silly, but hey, at least Tom Paris can say he boned the captain.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, he did.
Now they're going to write a story about the kid someday.
Do you not remember afterwards when he was apologising to the captain? She's like, no, we don't talk about this again, basically. Yeah. She's like, I hope to have kids someday, just not like that with you.
Instant emotion. Don't talk about it. Guarantee you somebody's going to be writing a story about that, and we're going to be going like this. Oh, no.
Yeah, Discovery Season 5. Anyhow, so they're trying to fix this proto drive, which I'm not a big fan of. Slipstream all the way. And we get to hear at this stage, Gray, all the crew's backstories, proper backstories, actually. Yeah. Finally, it took them long enough. We start off with Rock. I felt a little bit sorry for her. We find out how she came to be on that mining planet at the start of the season with all the other crew. She was known as the monster or a monster. All you heard her do was grunt and make monster noises, purely because I think the universal translator wasn't a thing for them. So she's probably trying to talk and it just comes out as a roar. A little bit strange, but anyway. She's in a fighting arena. As soon as I see this, I'm getting vibes of Thor, Love and Thunder. No, is it Love and Thunder? It was Love and Thunder, yeah. Yeah. Which was a bit better than... No, that was Ragnarok. Love and Thunder was the one after. That was it. Where the Hulk's in the arena smashing up.
Yeah, Thor. Exactly. Yeah.
And I felt a little bit sorry for her at this stage. She does end up becoming kind of friends and pally with this random alien dude. The hero, as Gray's calling him. Yeah, we'll call him the hero. Yeah, that makes sense. A nice name. The monster and the hero.
It's kind of like a kid's book, The Monster and the Hero.
Well, yeah, it kind of is a little bit, actually. I mean, they're both kind of pally and friends with each other, actually. This is the point where I first noted, Gray, that the Kazon were back. They were doing a little shady deal to take away the Rock. Or the Rock? No, that's Dwayne Johnson. Rock. R-O-K, not R-O-C-K.
That's right.
And that's when I first noticed the Kazon. They pop up more than once during this episode. And I kind of like the fact they're back because they're kind of like the scummy species of the Delta Quadrant. Maybe, I don't know, like the Ferengi of the Delta Quadrant. I don't know. But Gray, you've noted here, you found it a tad strange that Ailey could not figure out Rock's lineage. Really? Why?
Well, because I figured that this guy's making money because he's doing these fights and people are paying him good money to see these fights with the hero and the monster, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, and it actually for quite a long time in Starfleet, a universal translator was quite common. Everybody carries one. It's not like it's something that it's so hard to get. They're everywhere. So I'm sitting there going like, seriously, after all this time with the money that this guy's making, you couldn't buy even a basic one? I mean, it takes 2 seconds for us to go to Google Translate. So in the future, he's not holding a universal translator.
You learn the language after a while naturally anyway, of most languages if you're around someone for long enough.
Right.
So
so all he knew is like little maybe twinkles of an eye or a thumbs up or okay, please. You got to learn more than that. I mean, I'm stretching a little bit, but I thought that just sounded kind of weak.
Yeah. You're wrong.
And plus I think they kind of, you saw what happened, but they didn't really go into it as much of explaining it, but what the hero, how much of the hero was a big dick for selling Rock off.
That's confused me, this bit. Why?
Yeah, I mean they exactly. So he goes and just sells her off after all this time that they've been together, and he seems to care about her.
I thought he was trapped in there
And
as well with her. I didn't
yeah,
think I didn't think he was
exactly.
the ringleader. So how can he be selling her off? I thought he was just
Yeah,
trapped there
it
like
just
her.
seemed
Strange.
rushed and just kind of thrown in there. And this is what I'm talking about the writing. It gets me nuts when they sit there and they write well, and then they come up to something where they just gotta just throw something in or not explain something, and it's
Yeah,
getting nutty. It's getting nuts to me already.
that would have
But
been
whatever.
that would have been really easy to fix if they just, the
Yeah.
ringleader came in, not hero, the ringleader, and went, right, okay, you're not doing your part, we're selling you off now. There you go. That was so easy. I fixed that in
Or he
seconds.
could have just gotten angry with her and said, "Listen, we're parting ways," and kick her the hell out.
Oh yeah, even that
And
works.
that would have made much more sense than sitting there. Like, let's sell her off. Like,
And he seemed sad the whole time. I'm like, okay, right, whatever.
sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of a letdown, that part, I must admit. But it doesn't drag the whole episode down, thankfully.
No, no.
We move on to Zero next, our favourite Medusan. How he, I believe it is a he, ended up in the despite it sounding like a she, but who am I to argue with the PC crowd in 2022, mate?
I don't know.
Very well
Entity.
could be a he. The entity. Yeah, we found out how Zero ended up in the Delta Quadrant. And the goddamn K's on her back again.
Back again.
God damn it, man. I mean, the 3-4 appearances in this episode, we haven't seen them in bloody ages. Anyway, this whole scene I liked a little bit because Zero and the other Medusans were in their natural form, kind of floating about the place.
Running around.
And they go up to, Zero goes up to, we assume it's Zero, goes up to an insect. Now, it must only work on people with certain level of intelligence because the insect doesn't automatically get fried, but it then gets eaten by a rock creature right behind it, which I found amusing. So they're all floating about, and then their plan is they're going to go off to explore. Now, I mean, you could delve into this for ages, but they go to a ship. So you think at that level of consciousness, right? Think
why would they need a ship?
Yeah, think Stargate and like the Ori or something, or the humans that I can't remember what they're called, the ancients, when they go into like an energy type state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you need a bloody ship?
The only thing that I could think of, if I'm going to throw an explanation out there, is the fact that they can't travel as fast by themselves as a ship could. So they only utilize the ship when they really got to go fast.
Yeah. They'd survive space probably naturally out there without a case, but they wouldn't, like Murph, but they wouldn't be able to go at any kind of significant speed.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
it doesn't explain the next part.
Yeah. About the Kazon. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. The thing that drove me nutty was I'm sitting there going like, so the Kazon are staring at the Medusa, but nothing happens. Now, the only thing I can think of,
they had visors on their face.
They had these red visors over their eyes, and so I'm going like, I don't know,
stretching it
because I mean, it's a red visor. The Medusans, it just sounds like it's just a little too easy.
Yeah.
But oh well, you're kind of like expecting that. Let's just say we accept it. But the thing that was hard for me to accept, but okay, fine. Then the other part I just don't accept at all is that when the Kazon are chasing down Zero to capture her, the rest of his compadres are all beelining it for the ship, so they're running away, right? Okay, fine. But they run away, get on the ship, and just take off and don't do a damn thing about saving her. Not one. I don't understand that. They're in a ship. You mean they couldn't just turn the ship around, try to fire on them, scare the Kazon, delay them?
They knew,
something? I don't know.
I don't think they knew. They were all heading for the ship. Zero sees something and doubles back.
Then let's fine. Then let's say they do that. So you mean to tell me they're not going to know right away that one of the people are missing?
Yeah,
they're part of a hive. And wait, and there's a better explanation why this is dumb. Medusa Zero explained that the Medusans are a hive mind, similar but not the same as the Borg. So you mean to tell me that being in a hive mind, she gets kidnapped, and yet they don't know anything? Sorry, wrong. So the writing really fell apart for me right there, and I don't like how they just put this stuff in, don't explain it, and just figure that you're an idiot and you'll just go along with it. Gets me crazy.
He's not happy. He calls them all dweebs in his notes. I've not heard that word
Yeah.
in years.
I mean, I just remembered the hive mind thing, so that makes it even more ridiculous that they even wrote that in there. Sure, they just take off and they automatically know because they're part of the hive mind that she's being taken prisoner or whatever's happening, and yet they do nothing. They just go like, we're just gonna fly off, and we're not gonna come back and try to save her. Nothing. It's just too easy. And now we go back to the it's a kids show thing.
Yeah.
And I hate to keep drilling this, and I guess that the writers could use that as an excuse, but to me, it's kind of like, come on, there's ways to write around it for the people that are a little smarter than the average bear, and don't treat us all like idiots. Just don't make it that easy and just throw garbage in there. But they do, and it just gets me totally nuts, man.
Yeah.
And like you've said before, both of us, but especially you, it only takes writing a line. You could come up with one line or two lines that would totally just explain it all, and yet they don't do it. And I don't want to hear this garbage that we only have 21 minutes, in the half hour. Please
make it longer.
You can write something. Yeah, or even if you don't, give me a break. You can say a line. Yeah. Get rid of another line that's not so important, and put this one line in there that would clearly explain it easily.
He's not happy,
they don't do
gentlemen.
it.
He's not happy.
No, it's just. But this is what determines what is good writing, what is very good writing, and what is great writing.
Yeah.
And that's what divides it up.
You can't necessarily get away with bad writing just because it's a kid show. That should not be an excuse. Right. But you mentioned something here at the end that I maybe missed out, Gray. Zero wound up in the Diviner and Gwen's home planet, so that's explained now.
Yeah, because at the end of the story, when Zero was captured, somehow she eventually ended up in.
Oh, but yeah, she was captured by that ship.
The Diviner's Race, right? The Diviner's Race bought her. Whatever they did off the Kazon.
We don't know it's them. And it's the Kazon that steal them, isn't it? That's capture.
The Kazon stole them, right? So apparently they sold Zero off to the Diviner, who was able to use her abilities or whatever, But now it explains why we originally saw Zero involved with the Diviner, and we never got the backstory on that one. So that was cool that they explained how that all ended up.
Yeah, thanks to the bloody Kazon, they just seem to be capturing most of our bloody crew here, the sneaky devils that they are.
Yeah, do we want to say something about the Kazon at this point? I wanted to keep on going. Let's keep going because we'll say it. I'll say it later. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't want to steal your thunder, Grace, so we can leave it if you've got a bit coming up about the Kazon.
No, sure. because we haven't even gotten on to Jankum yet. So let's continue.
Yeah. Okay. You step out at the relevant time. So yeah. We were back with the Diviner. He's still not remembering very much, this guy. He's. I mean, I thought I had a bad memory, Gray, but the Diviner takes the biscuit. All those drinking days I had back at uni when I was a student, and still I've got a better memory than Diviner. At this stage now, the ensign, which I still don't remember her bloody name, the one that's
I don't either.
The one that went from the American accent to the English accent as soon as you turn bad guy. Now the enemies, Gray notes here, tells the story. I like this bit, the little storyboards and stuff they had. She actually tells the story of what happened when the race actually met Starfleet for the first time. And I found this whole bit cool, to be fair, Gray. We see Chakotay again. It seems like they've went through anomaly or something, a time traveling quirk again that sends them to the future, conveniently enough. Might be something to do with the proto drive as well. I don't know the way all that works. And they come out of the other end to the Diviner's planet. Well, it's not Diviner's planet, it's that mining planet. And obviously the protostar is damaged and whatnot, and it lands. But the people see this. The local people see this and wonder what the hell is going on here. They kind of turn at one point, Gray. They turn against the protostar and the crew. Now, I don't recall at this part why they turned. If you recall why they, because at first they saw them, they were fascinated. I think it was it evolution of technology and whatnot, and things backfired.
From what I gathered, apparently some of the population of the diviners race, whatever, um, read or found out a little bit about Starfleet, and they decided that they kind of wanted to follow some of those traits that they discovered in
Yeah.
Starfleet, which then caused a split in the population. Which this is the part where I thought was kind of good writing.
Yeah.
This one little thing, all of a sudden they fixated on it and they blew it all out of proportion, and so much that it all consumed their race and what they felt had to be right or wrong or whatever. And this, of course, then blew up over decades, centuries, whatever, into civil war, which then split the planet, which then killed a lot of people. Blah blah blah. So they essentially hold Starfleet responsible for the fact that a few of them found out a little bit about Starfleet, and it went from a little problem to a big problem to destroying their race, which is pretty cool writing. I like that.
Yeah.
And they've carried this revenge factor, blaming Starfleet for the fact that, well, if we never found you, we would never have gone through all this.
Yeah.
So to a fault, they followed this to the point where it all consumed their race, I guess.
Which we've seen before in Star Trek. We've seen before in other sci-fi shows
Sure.
as well. But at this point, they capture Chakotay and the crew. This is the bit that kind of confused me, because at the start they loved them, but was it soon after they landed that because they could, I don't know if they could see into the future or the past, soon after they landed it seemed like they'd captured Chakotay and his crew, but then obviously Chakotay and his crew were able to escape. That's the bit that kind of maybe baffled me a little bit. This whole...
Well, what happened was, according to what I saw, is Chakotay and the crew didn't escape. They sent the protostar away so that the diviner's race couldn't grab the protostar. So that's how the protostar got away with no crew. So that means that the crew is still prisoners in the future.
Technically, yeah.
Right. So if they're assuming that they're still alive, I would think the way the diviner race would be, they would all be dead, but we'll see.
The point I was making was when they arrive, when the protostar arrives for the first time, then the whole evolution of part of the species follows Starfleet's methods and half of it doesn't. But this takes place over years.
Yeah, a long
time.
Yeah. Decades, centuries, whatever.
Chakotay and his crew are not hanging about this whole time. That's my point. That's the bit that I was a bit miffed at and a bit confused at. So he lands, evolution happens, then he sends the protostar away. That seems like that happened too quick, but it had to have taken place over eons. Do you see what I mean?
They don't really thoroughly explain where the time is passing exactly.
They don't. I mean, it's someone's story, someone's interpretation of it. That's the confusion thing. That's the confusing thing. You could make up a number of reasons what happened. Maybe the diviner's race have a way of looking at the past or the future to see what happened, realize things were going south, and they capture Chakotay and his crew. They, for whatever reason, they send the protostar off an autopilot back through the anomaly, right? So I'm thinking this doesn't take place over a short piece. This does take place over a short period of time. But why does Chakotay and his officer not get on the protostar? He's standing outside with his, assumably his first officer or whatever, round hanging over his shoulder, and he's smiling when he sends the thing away. Like, why didn't you just hop on, mate? Like, what? Why?
I have to go back and probably look at that part again. I thought there was a reason why they couldn't get on it. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look about it.
Yeah.
Whether it's weak writing again, I don't know. But fine, we can take for granted that's what happened, and they couldn't get back to the ship. But apparently they were saying Chakotay did something last second that basically put the ship into an autopilot mode and did the last command he could give it.
Yeah.
Then that was it.
That's
now they go chasing it though right afterwards, which is like, they had the whole story about they took 100 ships and
did they though? Because was it immediately after? I thought it was
because they immediately got this 100 ships. Well, I don't know. Again, we're losing track of some of the timeline because
you don't get
the enemy ensign is telling the story, so it's not quite
enemy.
I don't think we're getting the whole story, which is fine. That's fine because you're only getting one side. Either way, they're going to have to find a way somehow to go to the future to save Chakotay.
Well,
because
first.
technically he's already dead. Well, he hasn't really. I don't know
Yeah,
timeline.
technically he was dead.
Yeah,
As soon as he went to the future, technically he was dead.
yeah,
But it's not the first or the last time Star Trek will do bloody time travel.
sure.
So even though I've said wrap it for a while, stop it, guys. Yeah, that would be interesting to see if they actually do pick him up. But yeah, as Gray says, after a short period of time, actually before this short period of time, this construct weapon that they had, the last one that they put that on the Protostar, and they were going to then send that to the Federation and infect them all the way they're trying to do it just now. But that's when Chakotay then sends it away. Probably for the best. I would have just set it to bloody auto-destruct, but that's just me. And take one for the team. You're stranded, but you've saved the whole Federation. But yeah, Gray does mention that just after that, not long after, the anomaly's still open. They send about 100 of their ships or so through the wormhole to try and find the Protostar, but the sheer forces of it kind of rip up most of the ships. That we know of at least 2 get through the Diviner ship, and enemy ensign is Gray's calling her. Ensign Insensia. There we go. I think that's her bloody name, Insensia or something like that. Those 2 make it through, but they take a bit of a beating because they start breaking up the ships as they go through. Gray notes here, they're single-minded people to a fault as most die.
Exactly. I mean, you're going to send 100 of your last people, and you're going to go like, we're going to change. But I can understand that because they keep thinking that all they have to do is do this one thing to annihilate Starfleet, and their whole race is saved and back. And
Yeah,
so I get it. I can understand that.
it was a
I
good
do
point.
find it a little odd. Only 2 made it through, though. And yet
Yeah.
those 2 were able to find the Dauntless and also this stuff, and which brings me to my next point. If you don't mind, I'll
your
float
next
into
point,
it.
I'll let you hit that in a second, but does that maybe... I mean, maybe it partly explains what happened before, but I don't know. I'll let you go off with this section, Greg, because obviously there's a bee in your bonnet with this one.
Well, she goes in the course of her explaining to the diviner and trying to jog his memory and get him to remember everything. She explains that they were floating around they came through the time portal thing, whatever the anomaly, and they arrived 3 years ago. Now the diviner mentions that he's been running around for 20 years, which he then can understand how come they didn't age, but he did. But then I started thinking about this, and I'm going like, so you mean that the ensign, the bad ensign, arrived only 3 years ago? So she said she infiltrated Starfleet. Okay, I believe that. That's fine.
Happens too easily.
But in 3 years, she makes it all the way up the ranks to like ensign first class. Ends up getting commissioned and put on the Dauntless of all ships with Vice Admiral Janeway, and she did all that in 3 years. I don't think so. So
Possible.
To me, it's again,
Kirk does it quick.
I still find that really hard to believe. And so in 3 years, it just boom, you're
Great. She only got to ensign, which if you look at poor Harry Kim, spent the whole bloody 7 seasons on Voyager, has never got a promotion once.
Yeah, but we all know that's dumb too.
I know. But it's easier to get to ensign, is what I'm saying. If you do really well, it's maybe a bit of stroke of luck or really hard work to get on a ship like the Dauntless with Vice Admiral Janeway. That's the more unbelievable part for me. But I can explain the year difference thing. That's just a time travel thing. Some people, when they go through the wormholes, they'll come out at different times. That
I get. That's fine. I have no problem with that. It's just the fact, like you said, in 3 years, she should be on an exploring ship somewhere. Nothing important like the Dauntless. And yet she must have made lots of friends. It wasn't like she was running around paying people off. Like here's thousands of dollars in cash. Why don't you promote me onto the Dauntless? So I just think that's a little weak. I mean, you're not going to get too nutty about it, but it's just again weak.
It is a bit far fetched, but I mean, I can see it. I can see it. It's not something.
I mean, again, what would it? Think about it, like you always say, right? We've been saying over and over again. Why don't you just change one line? Now, if she had said, "We appeared 10 years ago," whereas the diviner appeared 20 years ago, whatever. Okay, now she had 10 years to figure this out. And stuff. I could have accepted that. 3 years. Wow, man, you're like,
or even 5. gives you a bit longer to
Or,
get to
right, or even
Ensign.
5.
That's more
And
believable.
remember, and also remember, she was traveling around with the Transformer guy the entire time.
The Transformer. That's a good point.
So
actually.
we have this robot guy
No,
looking
he's
like
been
a table.
He's been a table the whole
Exactly,
time.
he's been a table. So I'm sitting there going like, so does that mean that we should get this now? Does that mean that I would like to be on the Dauntless? By the way, I have my favorite table. Can you bring that with me too?
This poor robot table guy, like that's the first time probably he's transformed in 3 years. In last week's episode, he's went, "Oh, thank God for that."
That's right, yeah, man. Touch it out.
Robot table guy. That's what we
funny.
just call him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is far fetched. Point granted. We're still on the memory train here with backstory, and our man Jankum is up next. Jankum Pog. This one was a bit funnier and a bit sad at the same time, and I don't know if I believe it. At the end of this point, I'll explain why. He's put into a cryosleep chamber pre-Federation, which blew my mind. It turns out that a lot of the orphan Tellarites back then put themselves forward for deep space missions, which is cool and admirable and all that.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it's a old-fashioned science fiction storytelling trait. He wakes up too early. His pod goes on the fritz and he wakes up too early. Now, when he wakes up too early, there's a goddamn stupid, dumbass robot that is... my Alexa... I'm going to set her off. My Alex device here has got more intelligence than this bloody robot. It's safe to say, Gray. This thing... When Jankum wakes up, he's asking this little robot AI thing what's going on. But the robot AI just... is really shit. The only way it will respond is A, if you state your name at the start, and B, a clear and obvious question. It's the only way you can do it. So he's, Jankum Pog, what's going on here? And then the robot states, it's went on the fritz and whatnot. Then after this, there seems to be one malfunction after the other on the ship, and it's just a little montage of Jankum going around fixing things, but he's explaining that he's only a junior trainee engineer at this stage. She doesn't know wake up one of the proper engineers, but because that's not a simple enough query for the dumbass robot, he's like, screw it, Jankum will do it himself, and he goes about fixing stuff all the time, one thing to another, things keep breaking, and then the toilet gets blocked, and it's like Jankum Pog's not fixing that. Next scene, he's fixing that, covered in God knows what else. And at the end of that scene, he's about to go back into sleep, but there's a I think I'm jumping ahead of myself here, these 2 points, but they go together. There's an oxygen leak in the next part here, and Jankum is about to go to sleep, but he's like, okay, I better go and fix that. And the dumbass robot, not so dumb this time, explains that we've only got enough, if you keep living and not go back into stasis, then we don't have enough oxygen for everyone. But he can't get himself back into the cryo sleep chamber. That's the problem there. I don't know if it's still broken or whatnot at this stage. So that's the point where he goes, would we have enough oxygen if it was just 29 people? And then that's when the robot confirms, we kind of would. But Grey notes here, we now know why Jankum Pog talks so much in the third person. Because of that bloody robot, that's why.
Yeah.
He has to say Jankum Pog.
It got ingrained into his head that he kept on saying, because he had to keep on saying his name all the time. So that's cool. I mean, now that's good writing, because it was really annoying me as to why does he always do this. I said,
it's not a Tellurite thing.
Exactly. And so now we understand why. So now I would assume, going forward, that Jankum's going to talk less and less in the third person. At least I hope so.
I don't know, man. It's kind of...
Well, he did, in this episode, you notice he didn't do a lot of third person. Only when he was talking about his story. When he was talking to the crew, he didn't talk third person as much. So I'm wondering whether he's kind of cooling his jets on that.
That's a point, man. We need to pay more of attention to the next episodes and see if that's a thing he does. That was funny, that whole montage thing. But the fact that he sacrifices himself for everyone else, I don't know if I believe that, and we'll soon see if that's just a ruse or a misdirect, because he can be a bit selfish, Jankom. So I don't know if I believe that, but on paper it looks like he's saved himself. He saved everyone else there, so that he would escape.
I think it was real because he's talking about his people,
and he looks sad as well and whatnot.
But he figures he can make it on his own. So what the heck? So he goes off. But the funnier part, though, I thought was kind of cute too, is he's leaving. He's going to the escape pod to sacrifice himself, sort of. For his people, and then he tells the robot to make sure they all know my name, and of course the robot immediately forgets who he is.
And he's like, "God damn, really?"
So you kidding me? So it's just like, oh, forget it.
No wonder Jankom ingrained in the brain. I don't blame him. He does leave in an escape pod, but then who catches him? The bloody K is on again. These guys you don't see them for forever, and they make more appearances than you care to remember. Great notes. What's up with them? They're just slime balls, mate. That's what's up with them. And they really need to put some I don't know, some good shampoo in that hair of theirs, because that's a goddamn mess. Have you seen that? Especially from the Voyager series.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys need to visit a barber or a hairdresser or something, man.
The only thing is, I guess I understand that this is a rolling gag or something like that, but it's starting to get a little old for me, because I'm going like, K's on here, K's on there, here, there, here, there.
Too much.
I'm not going to sit there and accept the fact that the Kazon did all this to all the crew. Oh, what a coincidence! Like
most of them, anyway. Certainly.
Yeah, and it's just not making sense now. I'm going like, what? Like, he could have been picked up by somebody else. It didn't have to be Kazon.
Yeah, they're just the ultimate bad guys this time round.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You're not everywhere.
I'll let you do the. Well, you'll be surprised, actually, Gray. I'll let you cover Murph's background story.
Murph's story is that he comes from a race of these blobs that goes way back to cartoons. No, actually, we don't know anything. They just asked Murph, "What's your story?" And of course, he just burps. He says, "He says burp," and that was like, and they're all laughing and stuff like that. But we still don't know anything about Murph or where he came from. I assume this is going to be some episode someday. Whatever.
Better be.
But I did like what came next. The proto drive is repaired, and they gotta crank it up, and they give the honors to Rock, and he puts his big old hand on the thing, and the proto drive starts kicking up. So that's cool.
Charging up anyway. It's not as simple as just hit it. It's they need to recharge the batteries, man. How quaint in Star Trek. But yeah, kind of closing up the episode. It's a little bit shorter than the normal this episode. Well, no, same length. It's just not as many separate noteworthy things to mention. Closing up the episode, we see Holo Janeway. I like Holo Janeway. This is when she was kind of captain-esque and still a bit innocent. Her backstory, the crew asked what her backstory is. I'm like, well, she was created as a hologram by probably some person. Like, what do you need to know? But they're wanting to know what the real Jamie's like. She's got her memories up to that point. And she only mentions Molly, which, if you've ever watched Voyager, is only mentioned a couple of times. That's her dog, was her dog. She also goes into a lot more detail. I highly recommend for you, Gray, and other people, there is a book and audio book on Janeway, what happened after, her early years before she hit Captain, or as she hits Captain up to the stage where they go to the Delta Quadrant. It is a fascinating read. I'm not a reader, but I listened to the audiobook version, and it's Kate Mulgrew that voices it. It's just a delight to listen to how she goes up the ranks, what she does. She mentions her dog Molly several times. That's why I know this really, really, really well.
For a minute there, you scared me because I thought it was the whole book on how Molly went up the ranks.
Oh, well, I mean, it could be similar to Cosmo from Guardians of the Galaxy, the talking dog. Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
No,
the raccoon, the dog.
Molly's I don't know if she's a golden retriever or whatnot, but she loves her dog dearly. But yeah, so that's all we know about Holo Janeway and the memories she has. Basically, we're back with at the end of the episode with Vice Admiral Janeway. And at this stage, she is told that the Diviner is the person that put out the bounty for the Protostar crew. It's at this point here, and I noted that at the start of the episode, she notices Gwen. She calls up Gwen, looks at her in closer detail, and then she's clicking. She looks like the diviner. Like, it took you how bloody long? How long have you had this pad in front of you, woman? Like, you're supposed to be the smartest of the smart, and you just clicked.
I was waiting for her to point out right away. Oh, that's whatever, and then they could go into the rest of it, right?
Just a
but
light
she
bulb.
never says anything. It's just like, yeah, exactly. You blind? It's right there.
Yeah. Well, we'll let that off. It was amusing that she didn't find out as long as she bloody did. But she does click. Yeah. Okay. Wait a minute. She looks exactly like the diviner. And Gray notes here as well that Vice Admiral Janeway and her number one figure out that the kids are not criminals. They're just kids that are way over their heads. Now, at this stage here, Gray, what makes you... I mean, why does she think at this stage they're not criminals? They did steal the ship after all. They're kids. Doesn't matter if they're kids or adults. They still took it. Why do you think she thinks they're not kids? They're not criminals at this stage?
Because she's Vice Admiral Janeway and she knows
everything.
No.
Is that what you're going to say?
No, my guess was more like since a bounty was put out on them, especially on kids, which probably doesn't happen very often, she's starting to put two and two together and go like, this is really weird and kind of odd. So I kind of figure, it would have been nice if there was a little more explanation behind it, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I
can live with that too, I think, actually.
Although she does say earlier that scene, she was saying, or maybe it was the scene before, she was saying something like, well, these kids, she didn't use this word, but I'm using it, outsmarted the Tal Shiar and Starfleet.
No, they did. She did say that.
She didn't say the word outsmarted though. She just said that they got through them, and like, and I'm sitting there going like, yeah. Now you're admitting again what we said last week. That was stupid. It's like, how does this happen? Like, not a good explanation. But again, it's a kids show.
That is.
Let's fall back on that one again.
I'd almost forgotten about that. Actually, that's a very good point, Greg. Yeah, she does mention that at one point. So at this point, she then heads towards the diviner's quarters. And I think she's speaking to security via her comm badge, just asking security to do a bit of a recce and a background search on these people to see if she could find out more about them. And what was it? Who was it she was trying to find out more about? Actually, I'm trying to remember here, Gray. Can't remember.
I think it was more towards the diviner, but she was starting to piece some things together. So she knew something because when she said, "Where's the ensign?" or "Where's the diviner?"
Yeah,
and they said that he was in the ensign's quarters. So she's kind of like we need some explanation behind this.
Yeah.
So she's already starting to think this is weird.
Yeah,
being a good admiral, vice admiral, whatever, she calls for security like you should.
Yeah.
To more or less meet her over there.
Obviously to meet them outside. I don't think I don't think that happened. She was asking them to do.
She got there before them.
A check on them or something, because if they are going to meet her there, then this last part here, which Jamie walks up to the door. Now I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a admiral thing that you just walk through someone's private quarter doors without chapping or anything.
Well, a security thing
happening,
right? Yeah. She should have overrid it, but
she can go right through. She catches them red hand. There's bad ensign. There's transformer, robot, table guy, and there's the diviner all having a jolly. And she's like, "What's going on here, man? What have I walked into?" Before the diviner just sneaks up behind her and does the whole. I just immediately thought of Austin Powers judo chop.
Yeah, right, trying to chop on the neck. It instantly puts you out.
You do that, and that makes you pass out, does it?
They've done that. They've done that for years, man. They did that way back.
You have to do it to the head, not to the bloody shoulder blade. That's going to do nothing apart from her.
Well, I think how that all came about, besides looking like it's a judo karate thing that's cool or whatever. But they've been using that now, going way back to like old shows in the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. And I think part of the reason they do that is because they didn't want to get too violent.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
It's instead of cracking her on the head and she's bleeding or whatever, they just go, do the karate chop thing. It's a kid show.
Judo chop. She's out. She's out. Gone. The episode ends. It was better than last week. Gray gives it a 7.5 out of 10. Gray, I'd probably give it a 7 myself. safe to say you did like the episode, but obviously not perfect for you.
Yeah, I liked it, but again, the easy stuff that they just don't flesh out, the writers is just sticks in my craw. It could have been if they had corrected that stuff and wrote the proper lines or whatever to explain things, it probably would have been a 8, maybe even a 9.
Really?
But
Wow.
it's just
Wow.
maybe, but it's just too much when you start seeing these really dumb things going on. It's just
They happen a lot. Yeah. No, true. I'm just glad they got back to some better form. It doesn't need to be 10 or 9 out of 10 every week. Just you want solid 7 and 8s most weeks, I would say. No, not decent at all. We're kind of getting nearer the end here. That's episode 16, so 4 episodes left to go. So I'd love to see what happens with Chakotay in the future if they can save him. Do the whole slingshot at Slipstream round the sun to see if that messes shit up even more, Gray. But yeah.
And then they got to get away from this time travel stuff. Another thing that's just too much.
Wrap it. Don't even do the time travel stuff. Let Chakotay find his own way back. That'd be even better. But yeah, so decent. We're going to wrap up there, guys. Thank you for coming along. We'll do the usual call to arms. If you can leave a comment below what you'd like to see more of from our episodes, let us know below. And obviously give us the thumbs up and a cheeky subscribe if you like this. If you don't, thumbs down, that's fine. It's cool. I won't take it personally. But of course, we've got this on all audio platforms as well, on podcasts, so you can listen. You don't need to watch. Any service you listen to music or podcasts on, it's pretty much there. Find us there at The Trekway and on Twitter at The Trekway. And Gray and I will do an entertainment pod along with a couple of our other friends and colleagues once a month. We've got an episode up not that long ago on Gray's pod. It's called Gray's Green Room. YouTube, again, audio podcast platforms, again, and Twitter, exact same handle, Gray's Green Room. And again, because we just love pods and killing ourselves all the time, we do a gaming pod as well. We're doing one tonight with our friend Nick at Extreme PC UK. If you go to that website, we have a whole entertainment section on the Discord there, and we can chew the fat and talk about Star Trek and all kinds of things as well. Feel free to invite yourself to the server. But until next week, thanks for coming along, Gray. Thanks for people watching, and do your thing, mate. See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.